Hello, everybody out there in digital land, whatever time and place you are in. Welcome to the Micro Solidarity Network call of February 2026. Greetings. We're here with a lovely little crew of human beings who are all involved in the practice of weaving social fabric, building high trust societies, making lovely, delicious, nutritious groups. And on today's episode, we have a couple of projects that are going to be presented. I'm going to hear from Didzis at Holy Motors and Jonas at the Civil Action Network. My thought was just to interview both of them and hear a little story about what are you up to and what has it got to do with this micro solidarity stuff. And since it's a small group, I'd be really happy for us to just open questions. If something catches your curiosity, just jump in. I don't think we need any more formal structure than that. I would like to share the time fairly. So I'll be a timekeeper. Maybe we start with Didzis and after 20 minutes we flick over and talk to Jonas. Yeah, cool. Let me set my timer. Didzis, I wonder if you have you might have stuff ready to share that you're, primed like you wanted to present, but I really wanted to know first and foremost, what is the story behind this name, the Holy Motors Camp?
Um, that's mm, that comes from the movie. Partially, there's a movie named Holy Motors, and I relate very much with the idea of becoming whatever who you want to be. Um, and It just touched me, and I didn't but I came up with a name, just wandering in Tallinn in some morning with my slight hangover, and there was a poster which said that there's a Holy Motors concert, which is also the name of the Estonian group, and and it clicked together somehow also with the dogs. I'm working together for 10 years now, and I see also them as kind of holy motors that are kind of perpetual mobile that they can do impossible things. So it's kind of mix match of my influences and for most cases, people can think whatever they imagine out of it, and some asking questions. Uh, just yep, just a name that also stands out and asks for explanations.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got a team of dogs, you're above the Arctic Circle,
Yes.
and you're doing some kind of community building, which is not the most obvious place in the world to do community building. Maybe it'd be useful to just, if you give us a few of the facts, like what's going on there.
Uh, I'm here for the third winter now, and I started this community thing even before when I left the city and moved into my forest home back in Latvia. And I already had a small team of dogs and this household who needed a lot of energy, and it just came together that I nor can or want to do it alone. But the other thing was that I want to be in these remote areas, and this introvert escapist mentality just conflicted with cooperation somehow. But so I came up with the idea that about sharing and sharing the space. and distributing the tasks or whatever has to be done. And that's how it evolved until the moment I moved up with dogs to Arctic Circle. And it grew up organically, just without particular intention or project in mind, just opening up the doors and saying that, hey, I'm here if you want to come over. If you share the passion of being in the middle of nowhere, then you're welcome. And yeah, it's third winter. Uh, what's going on? To answer your question, like nothing special, I'd say. We have good meals every day. We have we shoveling the snow. We are running small accommodation, like a hostel for adventurers. Um, Sharing the tasks, being hosts and serving guests. So it's a constant uh, change of people. Some are arriving, some are leaving. Stories being told. Yeah, that's what's in a short, just
And then
middle of it.
give me some
Mid
numbers, like how many permanent residents versus people coming through?
in the village. We are operating. There are 16 permanent residents in the village. In the camp now we are even 8. So so we
Powerful
are
voting bloc.
we are outnumbering the local residents basically. But it's also fluctuating. It's a very popular destination for weekends, for holidays, people coming to have fun. But permanently, there's a very little number of people just because the nearest shop is 120 kilometers away. So it's a dead end road. So there's no traffic that it's no transiting traffic. So the people come here with some clear intention to get lost or some thing they definitely need to get done or fix electricity or
Mm.
it's a very special place. Although also they call it Europe's last wilderness. Sarok National Parks around and a very special top destination for wilderness lovers. Also considered quite dangerous
Mm.
since there's not a lot. There are places without trails, 100 kilometers, big areas, nice mountains. Uh, you have to be pretty self-reliant to survive there, and that's for people who like challenges.
Hmm. So I'm curious about this particular, what to me sounds like quite a unique social dynamic where you're explicitly attracting people who are self-reliant and introverted and really like their own company, and yet you're bringing them together. Can you say more
Yes,
about what kind of interactions you're trying to get going between people?
most people who arrive here, it's above the Arctic Circle. They are on some crucial point in their lives, uh, whether relationship wise, career wise. They are looking for a break, like for a real break, and to sort things out. But what comes up just to describe their state, behavior. Um, More often than not, they don't even have a particular plan, or they're just wandering. And I can relate pretty much to that. That's what also kind of brought me here, just to see what's there where there's nothing, and this nothingness, cold, uh, it's it's still something special for me, and I enjoy it every day, and I know that I can find places where no one will find me, and that gives me very much comfort. And that's what we basically also talking about, or talking very little. It's uh, You'd say that there's not much communication, but there still is. Also, even if we sit in silence, and usually for longer term stays, first week we even don't talk, uh, just testing the waters, whether it's safe. Mm, how it is to be in a co-living space with strangers, and then after some time we just get get for most part we get really good friends, and not always there are people who find it very frustrating to be in a place where there are no shops, no petrol stations, no places to hang out. When you walk out the street, there's just a no one, and it can be very frustrating. And so uh, then. Then they find they try to find their way out, and that's what's happening.
Hmm.
That's unifying element that people, myself included, see solitude, calm, peace, uh, especially in winters, because winters also there are no bird songs, no insects buzzing. It's just a deep silence
Hmm.
and beautiful colors, nice nature. It's hard to put in words.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I definitely see that it's not for people don't want it to be here permanently. That's but for a certain period of time, this it can be a week, months, or more. I also feel that I can be sort of guide to how to navigate both practical issues and also mentally how to approach this very special place and environment.
It makes me curious with this, what you're describing to me. If it does feel a bit like a fantasy novel or something, this 20 degrees below freezing, it's dark all the time, it's totally silent, you're at this dead end 100 something miles away from everything. It sounds like a storybook to me. Certainly, uh, not the first context that I had in mind when I was starting to write my work on microsolidarity. Uh, so it's a surprise. It's a happy surprise to have you here, and I'm curious about what has microsolidarity got to do with what you're doing? Like, what role does the network or the resources have to play in the Holy Motors camp?
Uh, well, my idea of building this crew or group of people is something I really like about the Burning Man ethos,
Hmm.
and being an active participant of this community. That's also how I found out about microsolidarity through that network, and I had a longing to build something permanent, not so radically extreme in terms of self expression. Uh, all those principles, just removing this part of radical um, behavior, just something that we can build sustainable environment to be together, like a family, which is not a family still, but this relationships built on trust, which is also I consider Burning Man as high trust community, and then I moved just from that place, not knowing where I will end up, just putting the message out, just and with a thing I'm doing, or what I'm interested in, and what I offer, or so it's a characteristic sign actually about this holy motor thing, that there's no particular structure. It can be very confusing, but I also intentionally try to avoid structured um, organization, because then it kills this uh, then it becomes work, or these transactional relationships, uh, which I find not very nourishing. And yeah, a lot of people, how people get here. It's most of them I'm getting through Workaway, just by stating explicitly that I'm not working on Workaway principle, accommodation versus some labor, that you can come and we will figure out. And if we vibe, then whatever happens. And some people find it very appealing. Oh wow, that's interesting. No one does that. And then we are figuring out, and see where it takes us, and the place also is growing. I don't know. I have not a lot of control, uh, and that's also the challenge, because there are some things that are has to be done, not that whether we want it or not, and but also this struggle or challenge, I feel it makes me growing to face these things, how to make the place not structured, to foster this creativity and building things we cannot imagine now, and on the other hand, how to keep on float, and get the bills paid, and then nasty jobs to be done.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you wanted to say more about, what's it like in your role, having brought that first creative spark of an idea, and then to do it in a way where you're not in control. Can you say more about what that's like?
I like your question very much, and it reminds me what it is to build art for Burning Man. When you build something with no authorship, and even more if you build something to burn in a few days after you put the year of energy in, and it's really gratifying just to learn that. Mm, to see, to experience where we can go even without me planning it. Although on the yes, but there is internal conflict basically every day, because it's at the same time I there this my personal life, and it's also kicked in that I have a new wife since 1 month. I married, and
Wow.
it's also changing pretty much that we are figuring out. Maybe we need we need more privacy and how these worlds uh, sometimes maybe crash into each other or yeah and but yeah, the main thing that I enjoy this unpredictability and facing the issues and also solving them together, not just with coming up with a solution and then selling it to stakeholders that that's the best way to do things, but just showing up and saying that I think I think we have a problem, and I don't know how we can solve it or whether it's a problem. It's my concern, and then collectively find the solutions or other problems.
Yeah, sounds like a more honest and immediate contact with reality instead of filtering it through these frameworks. Like, it's all planned, it's all worked out, it's all in the image. You can see it here in this nice quadrant. That's my timer running out. Um, Before we switch over to you, Honest, though, I just want to check with the others that are in the room if there's any curiosities bubbling away in you that you'd love to ask about.
I actually have a curiosity. I remember us talking a while ago, probably like 2 years ago or something, because at this point did this about when you were just kind of had just started. And I remember back then you had a lot of or what was a lot on your mind was how extreme the environment you find yourselves in is and how risky it is in a way as well, and how much trust it requires to let anyone um, into the core of the thing, kind of, because everyday situations can turn very serious very quickly in such an extreme environment. And I'm just curious, like you seem way more relaxed now than when we talked about these things like a while ago, and I'm just curious what what happened or how you relate to this.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that I got used to this expect unexpected thing. That the first winter was crazy hard, just because I didn't know what could happen, and I was scared. Not only from the environment, also from people that would come and make a mess, and it would be hard to kick them out, and how I will deal with relationships and so on, and I remember the biggest fear that I will invite people, but if they will be not my kind of people, if they will be not like a burner mentality or something else, how I will deal with it if we want vibe, and then actually thanks to a lot of Max Solidarity calls 2 years ago, I kind of accepted that it's not mandatory to have my kind of people, and it turned out the biggest gift I got how to relate with people who are yeah, they came, they were not my kind of people, but I saw the beauty of not being from the same group or same bubble, and to see the differences of opinions, uh, culture. Also, it's a we have very different countries coming in, and different language, not just linguistically, but just how we see things, and And before I saw it as a threat, now I see it as a gold, as something I can learn and see things differently, and that's that's maybe also gives me some confidence that we can navigate things through, especially if we are different. That it's not a thing that puts us in the opposite sides. It could be also that I became maybe a little bit more familiar or with environment. Not that I'm more brave to go into places, but rather that now I know where to stop. Just that's we see. I've seen also tragic stories here, and so I also now consider myself lucky. Thinking about my past tricks I did, and now I'm very respectful to the nature, to how far I can go, and the same things I suggest to others.
Yeah, I just want to appreciate how it, like, for me, one of the really crucial and pressing questions of this phase of the century that we're in is, can we cultivate really high trust societies that are deeply pluralistic and multicultural? And there seems to be a growing constituency of people that just say, no, it's not possible. We have to retreat to a previous era. That's how we get the good life, is we just kick out all the different ones. Which is a terrifying prospect, gaining momentum. And the thing that gives me hope in the world is people that, go through that process you're describing of just learning, like, hey, I can find common cause with people who are different to me. And I mean, I feel it in the conversations we've had lately, the spaciousness and the groundedness that you bring. That's just, I think, because of the wilderness contact that you're making, that sort of enormous calm, like a ballast on a ship. There's a bigger thing here that holds us all, and like let's just make space for that, and not be so quick to dismiss someone for having some different preferences or worshiping a different god. So thank you very much for what you're doing and for your stewardship of the last wilderness of Europe. It's good work. Let's switch over to the fellow with the red hat, my good friend Jonas. Do you want to tell us
Hello.
about this Civil Action Network?
Happy to, yes. So Civil Action Network is an NGO that I've been kind of co-leading with a ever-changing group of other people in Vienna. What motivates us to do the things we do is looking at the state of the world and going like, hey, we need more people to act out of their own interest, like to show up saying, hey, this is what I need to be well in this world. We see that currently there's a lot of barriers to people doing that effectively and finding the others that share their interests and then organizing around making space for that and agreeing with people that maybe have conflicting interests on how do we share resources and like basically the democratic process, or when you look at it in a very boiled down way, it's not really happening in many ways. It's all very narrowed down into little channels that are controlled by insert big institutions or corporations. We really think that that's a highly precarious situation because we are facing many big challenges as a society and as a species, and it takes some decision making to go to move through them and get to a place on the other side where hopefully we've learned some things from the mistakes of the last 200 years of modernity. But right now we can't really take those decisions. We need more coherence and more communication channels and more tools and skills and attitudes and ways of showing up, and more people cultivating those, to include more perspectives and be able to do that. So that's kind of what we're working on in a few different ways. We work kind of on the edges of civil society with people that are systemically disempowered in some ways, or just also disempowered by narrative about who they are, or what it takes to contribute. And that can be workshops in schools or dance workshops in public space, or pickling workshops with a discussion topic attached to them. It's very low threshold things, where we just try to create spaces of the pluralistic spaces that can integrate diversity somehow, and that are designed and held in a way where people can come together and discover something new about themselves and each other, and hopefully something new emerges from that. And there's some bigger understanding being created. So that's kind of one kind of activities that we do. And the other is just support for existing civic initiatives around their own social field, their strategy, their approach to storytelling and community organizing and leadership and decision making, all of these more subtle activist skills that are not easily put on a slideshow and and taught in a 60-minute workshop about how do you register a demonstration or how do you set up an online fundraiser. But the more kind of inner and interpersonal dimension of social change.
Can you tell us what you know about kind of what works when it comes to activating these people? What helps get that energy flowing?
Yeah. So what works is being seen and heard with an opinion that one might think is controversial or no one will be able to understand, and then having someone that from a very different background be like, yeah, I completely get that. It's the same for me. And people go like, what? Really? And then they start talking and they really surprisingly engaged all of a sudden. And it may just be a conversation, but that's kind of the first step to then be open to be invited to a next step maybe after that. Feeling some kind of ownership over public space also is really important. We find that people that are really embedded in a neighborhood and have a sense of like, hey, this is my living space, they are often way more likely to care about what's happening in the space or to the space, and voice their opinion, get involved. Just knowing what options I have and knowing that standing up for what you care about is a thing that people do. Like seeing people that you can relate to do it helps, having role models. And then having like a clear, like at some point having a clear idea of this is a change I would like, and I see things I can do that where I can kind of conceivably believe that it helps to get there somehow. And it may not be an overnight thing, but the story and the theory of change is kind of clear enough and believable enough to me that I'm happy to put some energy into it, because just emotional activation around this should change is not enough. Like people also need a believable framework that they can insert themselves into. Yeah, those are some elements. And I don't know, like a good vibe helps, relationships help. Um, that's something I find again and again in my work with activist groups. They're like, we have so much trouble like retaining our volunteers. It's so much work to recruit new volunteers, and then they only stay for 2 or 3 months. It's like, okay, yeah. Why do you think that is? Like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, okay, but how do you interact with them? Like, how do you? Like, I meet them for like a 20-minute onboarding call, and then I give them some tasks, and then like they don't do them. I'm like, okay. So yeah, often there's this huge sense of urgency and just no time for taking care of the more human elements of things. And the initiatives that work really well, where people are engaged for years and decades, are those where they come for a cause and then they stay for the vibes and the connection. The thing I do on Wednesday evenings is go to the plenary and we discuss some things and we do some things and then we have a beer and just chat live. Like the way you go to choir maybe. Yeah. So yeah, there's a balance there to be found between like there's also the opposite where people just come for the vibes and then nothing really happens. So there's a balance there, but definitely having a sense of companionship important.
Ciao, Adrian.
Ciao, Adrian.
Thanks for coming. That makes me curious then, Jonas. Like you said, you can't teach some of the interpersonal, subtle relationship, social field stuff in a short PowerPoint presentation. But what have you learned about trying to transmit that way of seeing, or how do you shift people's priorities to care about that, to make time for it?
Yeah. So what we do is we run events, and they last anywhere from 2 hours to 6 days. And what we try to do at all of them is just attend to good hosting first. And there are a lot of the things that I have learned in the Microsolidarity Network and others have learned in other contexts. And we kind of speak a little bit different languages sometimes, but we kind of mean the same thing. Yeah, that's the thing, like kind of make people feel welcome. And that's also the feedback we get again and again is like, there's something different about this. Like, I feel really cozy here. And I just came because the workshop title was interesting, but actually I got way more out of it than the content of the workshop wasn't really what I got out of it. There's like a vibe here that I would like to come back for, and people do come back. And then we also do more explicit trainings on leadership and organizing that are more explicitly about how do you run a good group. And there we also attend to good hosting, but we do have slideshows also that outline some of the principles, but we also always relate them back to what's happening right now anyway, and have people practice certain ways of relating. Again, a lot of microsolidarity stuff like dyad practices or Victor's joining. Like certain dyad practices or small group practices. We have crews at our longer retreats and all of this. Hey, Victor. And we try to make it experiential and then have people reflect on why what they just experienced made them feel so nice and how they might apply that to their own context. That's basically it.
Welcome, Victor. We started an hour ago. You're most welcome showing up at this time, though. We're halfway through hearing from Jonas describing his work with the Civil Action Network, and I'm getting to grill him with questions. And the rest of us can also pile in with questions because we're just a small group. And we're just hearing about how do you transmit the skill of being a more vibesy person to organizers. How do you make space for, hey, let's connect and feel cozy as well as, trying to put the fire out.
Catching me up, Rich.
It's one of my favorite games to play. It's good to see you again. I'm wondering on us, you mentioned about people coming to the workshop and then feeling this deeper sense of welcome. Like concretely, instrumentally, like what do you do to give people the sense of welcome?
Yeah. So there's always someone at the door at a little welcome table. And when someone enters, they get a welcome. There's someone there saying, "Hi, hey, did you already sign up online? Or like, are you here for the thing? Ah, cool, you're here for the thing. Let me show you how it works. Are you this person? Ah, cool. Let me just make a check mark on our list so we know you arrived well and blah, blah, blah. The workshop's starting in a little bit. There's food over there. This is Jan. He's going to be running the workshop. If you have any questions about the content, go talk to him. Is there anything else you need? Just the basic kind of welcoming someone into a space that already helps. Any event we run, we try to accommodate for different ways of relating and interfacing with content and like input. A lot of this I've learned from you and Nati. Yeah, we try to not push people too much into the spotlight, but we also try to make it so that no one can hide completely from the group. That everyone gets kind of an invitation that is maybe a big enough stretch for them to a small enough stretch that they're happy to step into it this way around. So people can have an experience of, ooh, that was a little edgy, but it went well because I was received with my uncertainty or my half-baked thought or just speaking in front of the group at all. Or yeah, and a lot of that is the job of a facilitator to make sure that everyone gets kind of an appreciative nod or a smile or a sense of I'm being heard when I speak. But we also try to structure interactions between participants in a way that they do that for each other. So we don't just do frontal lectures, but people talk to each other, and there's invitations for what they could talk about, so they don't just sit next to each other awkwardly. And then there's some bringing it back to the whole group, so they can have a moment of genius in front of everyone, sharing what they found. And there's food. Most of the time, there's food. And unstructured space. Like usually like the short community building events we do in Vienna, they're usually like 2-3 hours, workshop at the front, and then open-ended food and hangout. And that really works well to prime people for unstructured time, because then they already feel a little bit more settled in the space and a little bit more acquainted with each other and the vibe of what's happening. And they have some topics to pick up on over food. And yeah, and there's good food, which is important because no one likes shitty food. Yeah.
That's cool. It's really great to just hear something that, yeah, for most people, it's going to be just this tacit experience of like, oh, it was a nice group. But to hear the design principles behind it, that they're really thoughtfully trying to create that encounter. It makes me wonder then the flip side, like we're hearing some of the good things about what you're doing, and I wonder what's tough about it.
Yeah. So for all of us in the core team, this is our job. We are trying to build an organization that has the capacity to provide livelihoods for people that do this work full time. And we're at a stage now where we can just about get by, like the three of us. At the moment, we're doing it full time, plus like some people that spend significant amounts of time on it. They also get some payment, but it's far from sustainable. Yeah, just finding ways of funding this kind of work is really, really challenging. We're trying different things, but yeah, it remains to be seen whether we'll it'll work out. Like right now, the funding landscape for nonprofits and NGOs doesn't look too rosy. yeah, we definitely are feeling that as well. Then what also can be tough about it is being like, often I have this like, I'm very in touch with what's happening in the world, and I often have a sense of I think you and I are quite similar in that, a sense of like, okay, yes, I kind of know the thing I'm doing is valuable, but like the world is on fire. Should we really be like running community building evenings? Is that is that really the most valuable thing I could be contributing right now? And again, I come back to, yes, that's the thing that's needed, that I can contribute. But sometimes it feels a little far removed. Like our theory of change feels a little like, oh, there's many steps in between the impact we would like to have and where we're starting. But yeah, I genuinely do think that the change we need is such a deep paradigmatic one that this is the only way. Like, yeah, and if it's not enough, it's not enough. But I don't think other things will be if this is not. Not to say that other ways of making change happen are not needed and valuable, but this is the way I know how to contribute in a way. Yeah. Yeah, and then just like all of the downstream effects of resource constraints and urgency in the environment and complexity just puts pressure on our team often as well, and us figuring out how do we work together and how do we make this sustainable for ourselves has been quite the learning curve over the last few years, and now we're getting to like a more stable place. But there's definitely been moments where it's not been very easy for me very personally to practice what I preach to others about engaging friction with curiosity, or seeing conflict as an invitation to more connection, or like all of these things that are very easy to to understand in theory and tell others about and teach in workshops. But then I just run into my own shadow sometimes, and I'm like, ah! And 2 months later, I'm like, oh, what was that about? I like everything's okay, but I spent the last 2 months being pissed about something and not feeling excited about work at all. And now that we talked about it, actually, it's fine. And just having a bunch of those experiences over time means like it actually does work. The things that we're teaching actually do work, but yeah, as I already said, like knowing them in theory doesn't really help. It's still really fucking uncomfortable, and it takes a lot of yeah, just sticking with it often.
So that makes me wonder, what if you were a houseplant, what would your ideal growing conditions be?
Can you give me a little more translation of the metaphor? Because
I agree with you that you're doing important work and that it's under-resourced and hard to get people to prioritize. And I also see how it can get frustrating for numerous reasons. And sometimes you find yourself with the resources, the inner resources, the sort of sense of courage or hope or motivation to just like brush off the frustration and get on with doing the good stuff. And I'm wondering how, assuming there's other people listening to the recording who are doing a role like you, what have you noticed works to keep you in top condition? And yeah.
Gotcha. So one thing is like a kind of internal thing in the team. It's just having enough space to address these things, having like a recurring space with external support to look at, okay, what are we learning about the kind of content layer of our work, but also the relational layer and the structural, like how do we interact on a day-to-day basis, and really having support for that. Hiring a facilitator or like supervision or something, I guess, is really, really crucial. Then for myself, being connected with other people who are doing this kind of work, in one way or another, like you or Jocelyn or other folks from the Micro Solidarity Network as well, who've been who I've been able to talk to about the things I don't know how to deal with. And not that others always have the answer, but like I experience the thing that I do for people in the school workshop or the conversation about polarization or whatever, that I'm just being received with it, and I have a sense of I'm not alone with this, and it's understandable to others, and I'm not mad for experiencing this, and it takes some of the pressure off. So then I can like look at the situation with more spaciousness and in a more reasonable way, and doesn't like kind of take off the emotional activation a little bit. Having professional support as well, like coaching and therapy, has been really important for me over the last years. And recently, just admitting to myself that there's also other things in life that are important to me, and kind of reducing my hours a little bit, so I can focus on some other things on the side, but also mainly to just have more time to not focus on anything. And I've really felt how I'm coming to work with a lot more joy. It's really mind bending. I feel like I'm doing almost as much in like 3.5 days a week now as I used to do in like 5 to 7 days, because I'm just there fully, and there's no frustrations. I mean, there's frustrations, but there's space in between to take care of them, so not frustrated all week when something happens on Monday, because on Tuesday I have time to process it, and so on Wednesday when I come back, I'm fresh and grounded, resourced, and I can do my best work. Yeah. These are some bits and pieces.
That's really interesting. Just that last piece about the pacing, like finding the pace that's right for you, that you suddenly, in a way, you get all this extra energy for free.
Yeah.
You're not grinding the gearbox. My timer rang, so I want to be judicious and fair with my allocation of the microphone. I will repeat the same question after this, or Uta or Victor wanted to chime in and prod at the specimen in front of us and see what he does.
I'll start. So do you see yourself how you've grown over the years? Because I can see that so clearly. So I just wanted to give that back to you. It's just so nice to see. I mean, just time passes and people do the work and things happen, and we're all so much more grown up than we were. I don't know, Rich, maybe you not, but no, you already were grown up. The father of them all. Anyway, this is, yeah, I really don't have a question, but that I wanted to feed that back.
Thanks, Uta. Somehow I find it really touching to hear, and just realizing, yeah, it's been 4 years since I've been connected with this network, and you being able to say that because you knew me then, and you now we meet again. Something about that consistency. Yeah, it's very, very sweet, very touching. Thank you. And I definitely can see it myself as well. Like, yeah, that was a big 4 years, and
if I can add, I think I'm 2.5 years familiar and participating in calls and all these online events, and I never met anyone in person. So it's it's really fun to see how it's possible to connect even without being seen in a real life, and yeah, see, connect, and get to know people. So I'm really grateful for that.
It's surprising, isn't it? This was a discovery for me during the pandemic where we shifted all of our facilitation into digital space and suddenly found like, oh, you can build community without making physical contact. Surprising, amazing.
Yeah. I feel like it's a gift to be able to hear more about like what it's like for you, Jonas, and like what your journey is like and what your um what's happening for you. I found much of my like inner monologue was or rather the stream that was coming up for me had to do with like, oh, fascinating. What would it be like, for Jonas to be in an ecosystem where he's kind of like um, just knows where to be, where his talents are like well applied, and the kind of things that were coming up for me was like thinking about markets, um, and could share more about that, but that's just the kind of stuff that was happening for me. Like, I wonder what kind of an ecosystem needs many Jonases, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah, like a society where the people who are paying close attention to the vibes are richly
yeah.
rewarded and constantly in demand.
Hmm. So the
Which,
kind of thing that's
with the way
I'll
that
share.
work is being virtualized and automated, it does seem like we're heading more and more into these subtle realms, being like the frontier for humans to be paying attention to.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. For my part, like I'm hoping to be to find and be a part of like a kind of ecosystem where there's lots of like a kind of distributed, vibe or like places to go, and then each of those places to go kind of like has people that are there, building community and tending vibes, and then all of those people kind of like are likely to need, this the kind of skill development the culture development that I think that we're cultivating here. Um, so I could imagine like what would it look like to create a form of uh, of organizing like an organizational form, that accomplishes that might not be so heavyweight as like having to start an intentional community, or it makes me curious what kind of stuff is out there. But like bazaars, on conferences, there's edge cities. I see there's lots of stuff that's going on. Makes me curious, like what about what I'm not seeing.
Kind of hints at a question that was bubbling up for me before, Jonas, when um, you said something like a deep paradigm change. And part of me nodded and said, yes, of course, the paradigm. We need to change the paradigm. And then another part of me was like, what? Could you say a little more about yeah, what is that change that you're imagining? What's necessary?
Mm, I mean, in micro solidarity terms, it's the shift from domination to partnership. Um, it's the like people being able to meet themselves and each other with kindness and compassion, and the world around them, and yeah, just putting different values at the center. Values like, mm, I don't know, beauty or or life affirmingness, or I don't have good words for it sometimes, but um, for me, all of this is really about being in love with life and um, getting really angry and sad when I see places that are um, places or people or mechanisms or systems that are inhibiting life. Mm, and people that have to work bullshit jobs and 4 of them just to make ends meet, and genius people that never get a chance to contribute their genius because no one asked them, or they were just born in the wrong circumstances. Yeah, or I don't know, people with good intentions trying to do good things and ending up in traps and getting stuck in their development and becoming resentful and checking out, like all of this. When I see it, it makes me really sad. And I've been very fortunate to experience a different way of engaging with each other in the world, and I just want to share that somehow. Yeah. Does that answer the question somehow?
Yeah. Yeah, it's moving. Yeah, it's really inspiring. Like that I don't know, I've been having some grim times lately. Like doing very well at home, very happy, nice community, meaningful work, etc., etc. But seeing beyond my little bubble, beyond my sphere of influence, that yeah, it feels like a lot of conditions are worsening, you know. And so it's encouraging to be reminded it's so simple. It's like, yeah, we need to change from domination to partnership. It's like 70% of the work right there. And we know how to do it. We've been practicing together at small scales. We've got a deep history of it throughout the entire history of human evolution. We've been doing it. And there's been, in my view, like a tug of war between these two poles of domination and partnership. And it seems pretty obvious that the world is currently lurching in one direction, but it's not a one-way street. It's a teeter-totter. And this each of the molecules of our weight matters, you know. Where we choose to sit our bum, it makes a difference. And like you said, it's including the way that we treat the parts of ourselves, you know, that this that deeper sense of welcome that you described for the guests showing up to your workshop is the same sense of welcome you bring to your frustration and overwhelm and gloominess. Like it helps. It really helps. It really, I think, builds capacity and maturity and serves life, and yeah, creates that more beautiful world that our hearts and minds and hands know is possible. Yeah, I'm going to wrap up the call, and I just wanted to say thank you. Each of you, so sweet. It's so sweet to keep coming back time after time and find that the roots keep getting deeper and more entangled with each other. And Jonas, yeah, it's been 4 years, and the cool thing is, yes, you've grown up, but also you've been exactly the same in some important ways, and like feeling that sense of my brother and colleague and friend on the same wavelength, reminding me of what I believe and doing it your own way and giving me fresh ideas. It's like really very encouraging.
Damn. It's very touching. Thank you. Yeah.
One important notice for the record, our dear host, Jocelyn, who's been mostly the one holding down the rhythm for the last 4 years, has been holding down another rhythm, very important one, and has produced a healthy and happy baby last week, which is amazing. Amazing, amazing. And I don't know the full story. I think it was not an easy labor, but the baby as well and the mother as well. So we're in a good spot. So we'll see her back eventually, but go send her a congratulations and 2 thumbs up and many emojis of joy. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Good to see you all.